Okay, this could be interesting. I'm going to go ahead and build a little tangent application that we're going to be using for some testing later on. That's going to help us find equations of tangent lines on, in this case, up to fifth degree polynomials. And I have a lot of experience with Excel, but I'll admit I'm not up to date on 2010, so I'm going to battle through this with you. But I do notice that we do have an opportunity here along our ribbon. We can go ahead and go to the insert page, the insert ribbon, and I can insert an equation over here. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And you kind of type it in. It's pretty self-explanatory. I think you can use some of this up here, but I'm just going to go ahead and type in y equals ax to the, and to the is going to be shift 6 caret, ax to the fifth plus bx to the fourth plus cx to the third plus dx to the second plus ex plus f. And see how this works out for us. So I click outside, I've got this equation. Can we make that look a little bit better? Yeah, I'm going to drag this up near the top and play around with this font a little bit. I mean, that's really our title, so not opposed to making that be pretty large. Okay, so there's our title for this guy. I'm just going to leave that up in row 1. It can kind of have a row to itself. So therefore, the user is going to have the ability to put in values for A, B, C, D, E, and F, and we need a place for them to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to start in, and you may want to follow along with me in this. I would expect if you're going through this tutorial, you're going to be pausing this occasionally, switching back and forth to Excel. But I would really recommend let's put things in the same exact cell location. So in cell B2, I'm going to put A space equals. In fact, I think I'm on caps lock, so I'm going to go A space equals, and then in B3, B space equals, etc. And you may want to play around with this and center this and change fonts or add some colors to the cells, but I'm going to keep this pretty generic at this time right now. So I'm expecting the user to enter those values right over here for A, B, C, D, E, F, and I'm just going to put some values in there that we're going to be able to adjust later. I'm going to just have this be A, B1 in cell C2, and maybe B is -2, C is 1, D is 3, E is -5, and F is 9. Just to kind of see what's going on with our material as we're doing this. And we're eventually going to create a graph of this. So Excel does a really nice job of fitting graphs basically on your TI uh, calculators. It's in zoom fit mode all the time unless we tell it differently, but we do need to tell it what our Xmin and Xmax values are going to be. So down in B9, I'm going to go ahead and just type Xmin equals, and in B10, Xmax equals, and I can see I might need a little bit more room for column B at this time. And just so I have some values working in there, the user will be entering values here. I'm just going to put, say, -3 to 5. I have no idea what this graph's going to look like. This is just off the top of my head, the coefficients that I've chosen. Okay, so we're going to go about the process of building a huge T-chart for this. And to be honest, we don't really need as huge a T-chart as we're going to do for this particular part of this program. But later we're going to add some approximating areas under the curves, and we're going to want a lot of values in our T-chart for that. So you're going to have to bear with me a little bit here. I'm going to go ahead in cell A20, and I'm just going to type in the formula equals, and I'm going to click on my Xmin value in C9. And that should put a -3 in there, but please note I did not type -3 in. That way, if I want to go back up to my Xmin and change it to -4 up here, In 321, watch this cell. 3, 2, well, it switched because I switched focus, but we're now at -4. So no big deal. I'm going to change it back to -3, hit enter, -3. So this should be an equation, not equals -3. Okay, now this cell is going to contain my equation. I'm going to give myself a little bit of room so you can see everything going on here. This cell is actually going to contain the formula that equates to our big fifth degree polynomial formula. So in B20, this is a biggie. This is what our y value is going to be. In fact, maybe in A19 I want to put x. In B19 I want to put y. Again, we could center those cells out. But this is going to be the y portion of my t-chart, and this is the biggie. I'm going to go equals. I want to start with A, but I'm not typing in A. I'm clicking on my A value right up here in C2. Then times, that's shift 8. My x value at this time is right here, -3. That's my A20. I'm going to use that A20 repeatedly here. Raised to the caret 5 plus my B value. It's nice how Excel kind of color codes this for us. I got a light purple times x raised to the 4th plus my C value times my x value raised to the 3rd plus I'm to my D value now times, boy, it's tempting just to put an x in here, but I need my x value raised to the D is raised to the 2nd plus my E value times my x value, A20, our MVP, that's our most valuable player in this formula right now, plus just my plain old F value. So I'll leave this here just for a second. You can double check that you have that equation before hitting enter. Good place for you to pause this video. Okay, as I enter that, I'm at -381. If you have the same parameters as I do for A through F and for your X min, you should have those values. So now I need to start counting up my T-chart, and I said we're going to have 10,000 steps in this. This is going to be a crazy huge T-chart, but Excel handles things pretty quickly for us. So in cell A18, I'm just going to type in INCR space equals. That's not a formula. It's just to tell me that what's going in B18 is going to be the increment I'm going to count by. In B18, I'm going to put equals, start parentheses. I'm going to take my X max value, C10, minus my X min, close parentheses, and I'm going to divide that by 10,000. And we get this tiny 0.0008. And that's how much I'm going to add to each of my x values. The nice thing about that is that increment will change if I perhaps go and make x min back to -4. My increment changes. It knows how much we need to count by for our 10,000 element T-chart. Actually 10,001 element, but who's counting? Okay, so now I'm going to create the X portion of my T-chart here. So in cell A21, I'm going to type in a formula. So of course we start with equals. I want to start with this -3 value. I'm clicking on it. But I want to add to that my increment. So I'm clicking on my increment. I'm not putting in 0.0008. I'm clicking on my increment. And on that increment, we want to make this B $18. I'm going to ask you just on these dollar signs, you take that on faith right now, and you can ask about it in class. But I want B $18. Okay. I'm going to increase A so I can actually see the decimals there. And now I got a big replication to do, and it's going to be a long one, so it's going to be kind of a drag. That's my pun. You might have heard it in class. But that's how we replicate. I select this cell. I want this formula to be repeated further down. And if I click on that cell and float over the box, you can see my cursor changes to this like black plus sign, and I start dragging that down, and you can see it starts counting up. I want to get from -3 all the way up to 5. I expect that to happen somewhere around row 10,020. So this is going to take a second. I'm going to, again, replicate, drag over this bottom corner, and start dragging down. And Not too bad. We're pretty fast here. So we've made it to 1,000. And again, I expect it to end at 10,021. But if you want to check, no, we're not there yet. I can just continue on. The good news about this is when we create our Y, we're not going to have to drag this all the way down to 10,000. And again, for reminders, I'm just filling time here as this happens. We're going to 10,000, so when we find approximate areas under the curve, we're going to be able to use 10,000 tiny little rectangles to approximate areas under curves. It's going to give us a very, very accurate result on that. So if you could see me right now, I'm dancing, trying to entertain you as this all goes on. So ultimately, we're going to be creating maybe 9 or 10 more pages like this, and you will never have to go through this process again. Although I'm not getting too sweaty, it's not really too much hard work here. Okay, now we are down to about where we need to be, and I realize what was my goal. My goal was, oops, I'm 10,120. That's further than I wanted to be. So let's go ahead and run that back up to where we hit 5, because 5 was my X max. It should be about 10,021, somewhere right in there. So there we are. So I'm going to delete these. Don't need those guys. And you're going to see here in a moment that we end at our X max. That's important that we end at 5 if that's what we have set as our X max. Again, if I change my X max, that value is going to change. And I'm just going to return up to the top. I could do it this way, but I also could, in my go-to box up here, I could just type A1. That's a pretty nice way to do this. Okay, now, remember entering this formula? All we have to do now is re-enter that formula 9,999 times. Now, we don't want to do that. We want to replicate. But we need to put some dollar signs in here before we do. And I guess I'll tip you off on the dollar signs now. I don't want to put dollar signs on the A20s in here because as I drag this down, I want A20 to become A21, A22, change with my X values. But I want C2, my A value, to stay C2. So that's why I put a dollar sign in here, C dollar sign 2. C3, my B value is going to stay the same, dollar sign. C4, dollar sign, C dollar sign 4, C dollar sign 5, C dollar sign 6, and C dollar sign 7. Do all my C's have dollar signs? Appears so. And then this is the beauty right here. Now I could start dragging this from the corner, but I can also float over where it turns into a replicate cross, double click, and it will build that. See if we get there to the same length as what I had before. Okay, so that's really a nice relief for us. Okay, now we need to go ahead and create a chart with this material in it. So I'm going to select all of my Y values from B20 down through, and I can really cheat on this if I know where it ends. And I'm going to cheat and only select these. I'll show you how I'm going to cheat with that in just a moment here. So I'm going to select those, and I want to put a chart in. So if I want to put something in, where on the ribbon might I want to look? Perhaps insert. So insert, I see I have some options for some charts here. I'm going to choose a line graph, and I'm going to choose this very first one. Again, all I have selected are my Y values. And I got this Y, and I have some curves here on that. Okay, now remember, my data really went down to line 10,020, and I've cheated that a little bit. So I often say in Excel, when in doubt, right click. I'm going to point at my chart in here, not at one of the axes, just the general chart, the plot area. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go to select data. And select data, if I look at my series up here, this says I've gone down to line 4,095, but I don't really want to go there. I really want to go down to 10,020. Okay. And I click OK on that, and I come up and I'll see my chart is now different. But if you notice, my X values don't really indicate that I started at -3 and went to 5. It's just counting the total number of values I have, my from 1 to 10,001 values. So I'm going to right click on this, go back into select data, and now for my horizontal axis labels right here. For my horizontal axis labels for series 1, I'm going to edit this, and I'm going to select the X values that correspond, starting at A20. And I could drag that all the way down, but I can cheat on that as well. I'm going to stop here at A30 and change the A30 to 10,020. I'm going to click OK, see what we've got. Okay, so here we got a whole bunch of values. I'm going to click OK. Let's see where we're at on that. Okay, now challenges here on this horizontal category axis. So I'm going to right click it. I'm going to format this axis. We may be blowing Excel away a little bit here by using that big of a chart. So let's take a look. Interval between tick marks. This is meaning I'm putting one interval between tick marks. This is like I'm trying to have 10,000 tick marks out there. I think I'm going to go 1,000 intervals between every tick marks. That would give me hopefully 10 along the way. So let's go ahead and click close on this guy and see what we've got here. So there's my tick marks. I like that. Don't have that real thick line anymore, but I'm not crazy about my labels. So I'm going to go back in here. Let's take a look at format axis, and let's see what else we have there. So our number, interval between labels. Oh, specify interval between labels. I think I want to label at every tick mark. So let's try 1,000 here. And let's close this. And where are my labels? Right click, select data. Let's make sure we're in good shape here. If I go to here and I edit this, where am I? Oh, it didn't take that. It was only going up to 30. Okay, we're going to all learn together here. I'm going to go A20 through A again. Maybe I just hit cancel. You probably caught me doing that. I'm going to go to 10,020 and click OK. There we go. Got it. I'll bet you saw me do that. All right. If I was a perfectionist here, I'd go back and restart this video, but we're going to move on. So there are my values. Now, here's the really cool thing. This is a dynamic chart. If I change my A value to, say, 3, I got a new chart. If I change F to 1 million, I got a new chart. Starts up around 1 million. So this is dynamic chart. If I change my X minimum to, or let's go with X max. If I change my X max to, say, maybe about where interesting things start happening, around 2, I get kind of a nice look at the curve here. I'm going to change my X min to maybe -1.5. And you see we start getting kind of the interesting portion of the curve. We can zoom in, zoom out, and Excel does a nice job of using zoom fit to utilize the whole graph space. I think I might take this series marker and just delete it. It's kind of in the way there. So there is our grapher, and now I need to go ahead and start talking about derivatives at specific points. So I'm going to come back out here, expand out these rows a little bit again, so I've got some room over here to add on. Let's find some tangent lines. Okay. All right, so I think I'm going to go down maybe to B. I think I'm going to go down to B14. And right here, I'm going to put X space equals, and the user's going to ultimately put an X value in here. In B15, I'm going to put Y space equals. In B16, I'm going to put M space equals. And in B17, I'm going to type in round. Here's a cool feature in Excel as I notice I'm kind of bumping down into my increment here. I'm going to grab those 4 cells, grab an edge, and just slide it up 1. Okay. So X equals is now in B13. All right. I'm gonna put in a value for x here, and I look over at my chart, and I'm gonna put in 0.6. I'll have some idea. At 0.6, we're somewhere maybe a little bit under 10. So I'm gonna put in 0.6, and the user's gonna get to change that value. But in here, I just want to find my y value for 0.6. So that's just using this formula again, specific to this cell. So I want equals a times my x value I'm choosing now is this to the fifth plus b times this x value to the fourth plus my c value times, here's my x value, to the third plus my d value times x. I keep wanting to type in x, but there's my x value, to the second plus my e value just times x plus my f value. And there's my 7 point, what I thought was a little bit less than 10. If I look at negative 0.8, I'm nearing a max here. It should be bigger than that. So I'm going to just type in, just to check it, negative 0.8. And there we go. We're up a little bit higher. But that sure looks like that's a value on the, there we go. There's our value on the chart right there. Here we go. Here's slope. Here's our calculus portion of this assignment. I'm going to go ahead and put our derivative of this function right in here. So with our derivative study, we know that that is equals 5 times a times our current x value raised to the fourth plus 4 times our current b value times x, the chosen x value, raised to the third. I got this underline in here. We'll get that guy out. So this actually looks like a formula. That's better. Plus 3. I'm now at the cx to the third term, so its derivative is 3 times c. It's nice to see. It shows us our progress as we go down our a, b, c, d, e, f's. C times x raised to the second plus d, or 2 times d, I think I'll go in that order, 2 times d times x, and that would just be 2 times d times x, plus plain old e, and of course the derivative of f is 0, so at that point I believe I'm done. I'm going to give it a second look. 5a x to the fourth plus 4a x to the third plus, or b x to the third plus 3 c x to the second plus 2d x plus e. I like it. And 2.36 is apparently our slope at negative 0.8. I'm just going to check here. It looks like at negative 0.45 I should have a negative slope, so I'm going to check that. Negative 0.45. Oh, good. It's a little steeper, and I should have a pretty steep slope over here at like 1.6. 1.6, we're growing pretty fast. Oh, I'm feeling pretty good about that as well. So there is our derivative portion of this. And at that point right now, we have an equation of a line. And now we just need to build that equation of line. But most clearly, our equation of our tangent line is y minus 31.1261 equals 77.816 times quantity x minus 1.6. It'd be nice to show the viewer that. So this is going to take a little bit of a challenge, but right now I'm going to go ahead and leave. We may have some minus negatives show up at some spots in our equation, but for those of you who are really interested in making this look nice, it might be nice, instead of having y minus negative 3, to have that become y plus 3. There are always ways to do that, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go down to cell F18. No real reason I'm there. It's just kind of that. This is just kind of some scratch workspace for us. And in cell F18, I'm going to put my equation together, and I'm going to go equals. And then I'm going to go quotations, because I'm going to be putting text in here. This is parenthesis y space minus space close parentheses. The next thing I want to go in there is that 31.1261 that I'm seeing, my y value. So I'm going to go space, hit and, which is shift 7, space. I'm going to click on the y value I want in there, space. I'm going to now change to putting text back in again. So and space, quotes. I need my close parenthesis. So that should give me y minus the 31.1261 equals, or excuse me, I'm not to the equals yet, but it should give me the to the last parenthesis. Now I'm going to go space equals space, and the next thing I want to go in there is my slope, so I'm going to close out my quotes. Maybe I'll take a look at what that looks like right now. Hit enter and come back into this. There's my y minus 31.12608. Oh, that's pretty nice. Obviously, we have some rounding going on up here. So that looks good. I'm going to go back in here. Now, the next thing I want to add is, so after I've got my equals, here's where my slope goes. So and slope. And now, after my slope, I want a parenthesis. So that's like text. And quotations, parenthesis. The very next thing I want is x space minus space. And then I need my x value. I need my 1.6. So I'm going to close off the quotes. I'm done with text. I need a formula and C13, my x value. And I need to close that up with a closed parenthesis. That's called concatenating. Good word. We're just chunking little pieces of information together. And there we go. Okay, I talked about this round feature right here to put this there. I'm going to go ahead next to round. I'm going to put in 2, which is going to signify I want to round these values that are showing up right down here to 2 decimal places. Here's how I'm going to do that. I'm going to go back into this equation, and right in front of the C14, I'm going to type in round, R-O-U-N-D, parenthesis. After the C14, I'm going to go comma, and then click on that rounding cell, 2, close parentheses. I'm going to do the exact same thing for my C15 and my C13. So my C15 gets a round, C15, comma, to 2 decimal places. And my C13 gets a round, C13, to 2 decimal places. Let's hope this works. Oh, there we go. We got it. Let's test that. Let's round to 3 decimal places in 3, 2, 1. Okay, these must round on their own. Oh, you know what? I made a mistake in here, didn't I? I put 2. I didn't want 2. I wanted this. I sure like testing this. I wish I could claim to, I guess I can claim to say I did that on purpose. I didn't want 2. I really wanted this. Okay. So there we have 3 decimals and 1.6 naturally rounds, but I'm going to change x from 1.6 to say 1.00325. And there we go, rounded to 3 decimals, rounded to 4 decimals. Great. Okay, so I think I'm going to use a little word art up here to get my equation in. So if I want to insert some word art, I'm going to go to Insert. And I'm going to look through here, and here's some word art. I love word art. I'm going to put word art. I'm just going to choose this guy. And what I'm going to do when this thing is selected, when my word art is selected, I'm going to go ahead and come up here, and I'm going to put equals. Where was I at here? Was I in F18? Yep, I'm going to click on that cell. Equals F18, enter. And there is my equation. And in old word art, you used to be able to shrink it that way, but now this gets handled with our font. So I'm going to go font size, and I kind of like it pretty big. Maybe I'll be satisfied there. Let's shrink that guy in a little bit, and let's move that guy so he gets top billing up here on our chart. Maybe at that time I want to format that. Oh, you know what? I think I can do this up top here. I can do this without this. I can go ahead and fill that, make the letters be black. Looks like it stand out here. So there's my equation. So Is that dynamic? Let's see. I'm going to change C to -3, and I'm going to hit enter. Watch my equation up here in 3, 2, 1, go. There we go. So only thing missing now would be it would be nice to have the tangent line drawn in along with this curve. So I'm going to go ahead and build next to this on my big T chart. I'm going to build my tangent line, but the equation of a line is a breeze. My equation of the line, if you look at this, would just be y equals my slope times x minus the 1.0033, my x value, and then I could add the y across. So let's see if we can get that. I'm going to go in C20 equals, I want to start with my negative point, my slope. Here's my slope, y equals slope, got it, times parentheses, my x value, which I know is over here. Then I want to go minus the 1.0033, which is really this value, parentheses, and then I have to add across my y value. So plus this. And then I just want a 10,000 element of this. Oh, you may notice something I might have wanted to do there. This is a good time to talk about that replicating process. If I come up to this one and I look, it's like, oh, these are taking the values I want up here with this 1.5 that I want, and that's great. If I jump down to here, oh, these are trying to chase me down as I replicate. I want this to chase me down. I want the x's to chase me down, but not the C17, C15, and C16. So I'm going to come back up to here, change C15 to C $15, C13 to C $13, C14 to C $14, and hit enter. And now let's drag that down a few and see if it seems a little bit more reasonable. Yep, that seems more reasonable. And I could drag it down 10,000 or I could click. Okay. All right, now I just want to add that to my graph so I can see my tangent line. So I'm going to come back up to my graph. I realize that is now in C20 through C10,020, hopefully. Yep, there it is, all the way across. So I'm going to come up here, I'm going to right click, I'm going to go back into, right click, go back into select data, and I'm going to add a series to this. And that series, I'm just going to, again, just start selecting here. But I know that I want that to go all the way down to 10,020. Select series values. Let's see, series name, select series values. Let's go ahead and my series values should be in here, shouldn't they? Oh, no, that was select range. Control V, want that one up here, I think. Well, we'll see. We'll see. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. To create a chart, must have at least one value. Yeah, I get you. I get you. Control V, take those guys out. Told you we'd be battling along together. And let's click OK, and let's take a look and see if we have a tangent line. Ooh, we have a tangent line. There it is. So you may need to back that up and pause it and put that in the right place. Again, this is quite a bit different than Excel XP, and I'm enjoying learning the process. It looks like my point's in the right spot, but I'm going to go ahead and put a tangent line over here at about, let's point up here, at about 1.05. 1.04 maybe. So let's go ahead and put 1.04 and see if we've got it. And, oh, 1.04 is over here. I'm sorry. That looks good. Back here again. This is negative 1.1-ish. I want to get a tangent line right through here at about negative 1.15. We'll try that. Negative 1.15. There we go. And now you'll see when we have this, we have a little bit of ugliness up here in this guy with the minus negative, but of course we can interpret that as plus. There are ways around that, but that data handling, that takes a fair amount of work. Okay, I'm just going to add two more things, an X-min and an X-max to our graph. And to do that, I'm just going to come right down here in my blank space, and I'm going to type in maybe in E19. I'm just going to put X-min. Or not X-min, just min for minimum of the graph. In F19, I'm going to put max. max. And then in E20, this is a simple little formula, equals min, parenthesis, and now it wants to know a range of values. I want the minimum value, the minimum y value that occurs through here. So I select these, and again, I'm not going to drag it all the way down. I know I go to 10,020. Close parentheses. So my smallest value on here is apparently 0.469. It's right here at the beginning of our chart, which kind of looks right. As you can see, the beginning of our chart is close to 0. Likewise, max equals max. And then we'll take a look at some more interesting mins and maxes. My max from the y values, again, I can cheat and just start the process, 10,020. And I see my max value is 51. And if I look at my chart, well, it seems reasonable. It looks like we're at about 51 there. So let's go x min. Let's take a look at this for a second. Let's run this graph from, say, negative 1.1. So we actually have some local extremes here. Okay, looks like this could be a max if I maybe stop this at 0.45. Or actually, I'm going to go over here to like 1.38. Okay, so now I've got a max that is occurring right in here. It's pretty close to 15. Let's see what this says. My max is 15.08. It occurs at 4.98. And I've got a min over here. It looks like it's pretty close to 5. I'll bet it probably is very, very close to 5. The value is 4.98, and it is occurring at 0.997088. So I can now put a text box up here or another chunk of word art that links into this min value and this max value. And we'll wrap up after I do that. It's quite a video here. So I'm going to just steal this. I'm going to go Control C, Control V. What this selected, I'm going to change F18 to my, very, very quick control here, to my min. And this would be my minimum value. And we could round that. We can shrink that. I'm going to take that guy, copy it, paste it, and I'm going to have this guy be equal to my max value. And so I could report my min and my max. Maybe I want to make this guy a little smaller. 12. Let's get this guy in here. Maybe I could just have that be over here, kind of the minimum part of the graph, my maximum part of the graph. I guess that's my maximum point on my curve. What did I have here? A 12, so I'll go a 12 for font size. And my minimum portion of the graph is here. We could also assign that to actually say minimum and maximum as well. We could say minimum equals 4.9803, etc. Understand, those are not the true minimums, maximums. Those are the minimums and maximums in our list of data. We're making very, very tiny steps, as you recall, but the chances of those being exactly the minimum and the maximum are pretty remote because this isn't a smooth curve. This is very, very tiny steps, but boy, it's going to be really, really close. If I wanted to get a better idea of what my true maximum was versus 15.07, I would just zoom in on this portion of the graph, like by maybe going from, let's see, negative, or I'm going to go from series 0.2. Why doesn't that have my x value? Maybe I just go from negative 1.01 to negative 0.8. Let's try. And let's see if we get a different max in 3. I know we'll get a different min, but a different max in 3, 2, 1, enter. Yeah, it changed it a little bit for us. That got a slightly different. That should be more accurate. And we can keep zooming in to get more accuracy on our max. So that is where we should be at this point. Again, it might be an interesting discussion to talk about how we clean up our minus negatives, which could appear here, could appear twice in this formula. But that's doing an awful lot of things for us at this stage. So at this point, you would probably, I always call it dessert. You might want to go in and maybe format some things up. For instance, maybe we want to put some borders on this guy, and maybe any place the users to enter something will kind of signify that by giving them a light blue. Like the user enters those, the user enters there, the user enters this, but the user doesn't enter these other values, although the user does enter this. So it's kind of just a coding to say, hey, you're going to enter that, but you're not going to enter these guys. You're not going to enter these guys. You're not going to enter these guys. You don't get to enter these. And we could actually even protect those so those formulas didn't get disrupted. Okay. So that's the homework for now. I know that's going to take you a bit of time, but we want to make this page be really good because ultimately we're gonna duplicate this page many times over, and the better the job you do on this, you're really going to have a lot less work to do. In fact, you may spend more time on this one page than you spend on the next 8 combined now that we have one good page. So format away, and we may clean up some of this min max stuff tomorrow so it actually says min, it actually says max. We may even get into some of this how we handle the minus negative, but that's going to be for maybe a future video. So thanks for bearing with me on this, and we look forward to seeing what you have when you return. But a really useful program that you're going to want to take with you to your calculus course and beyond when you head off to college. So thank you very much.